Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to part 4 of our tutorial series for Total War 3 Kingdoms featuring Cao Cao. And today we're going to finally do a battle. And the main theme of today's tutorial is actually something very unique and probably something that's only relevant to Cao Cao's faction on turn 1, and that is how to capture a general. So in this case, the person in question is Yuan, who is standing in front of us. He is a really good general to capture. Now, he is a generic general, as you can see from his art, nothing too fancy here, and I can copy the same look if I switch the armor on our father, which we no longer have because we married him away. I guess he's leaving us next turn, but we did marry him away, so let's play around with his armor. Oh, we no longer can. Okay, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone, but he's still displayed here, which is fine. It's a little weird. It will reset next turn. When we end turn, he will go to the Liu Dai's faction to finish his marriage. But at this point, we want him as a character. And the reason why is he has a unique background. He has something called the Agricultural Reformer. And we can't hover over it and see the bonuses, but I have captured him before, and he is amazing. So we're going to try to capture him. It's not guaranteed. I would say most of the time, you're not going to be able to do it. The percentage, I think, is roughly 61% on Legendary difficulty. But even then, it's a shot in the dark. We can increase it a little bit though, because thankfully we got some interesting items, and this is something you need to do before you jump into your first fight. Now is the time to equip all your items on the generals, because they're going to battle. And that includes the new Imperial Ji that we got, Ji of the Imperial Guards. It's a decent weapon, 850 damage for base and armor piercing, a bit slow in the attack speed, but gives a lot of resolve, which increases your health by quite a bit. And he has part of a set called the Wall, which will unlock some formations. We won't actually be talking about formations very much for this battle, because that's going to be a conversation for when we get a strategist, because that will be more clear then. We have no other horses. We do have various number of follower items, and we do have an item that will help us. We have the Shaman item, which is a new item that's added in after the Furious Wild DLC. I don't know if this item is actually locked with the DLC or not, but if it is and you don't have the DLC, perhaps you'll never get this item. But if you do have the DLC, I know for sure you can get this item. It gives you 10 points of expertise, which is great, and also 10% chance of capturing enemy generals post-battle, and we really want to capture Yuan. So that is something we're going to add here for Xiahou Dun, and the expertise is going to increase his melee evasion. Other ways to increase your capture chance is to get a skill called Patience. Patience skill give us 25% chance to capture enemy officers. We currently don't have this, and so far away from where we are on the skill tree, it's just not possible for us to get it in time, so we just have to go without it. But if you do have officers with this, they are who you want to use to capture certain generals. And then over here, we're going to give him the Iron Snake. The reason why we're giving him that item instead of our leader is because it provides satisfaction aside from stat boost, and we already said leaders don't have satisfaction because you can never really be satisfied with yourself. In this case, Xiahou Dun is going to get pushed over to 64. Anything above 60 is a green face, and he's very happy with us. And speaking of items and green face and satisfaction, we should come to Lady Bian for a second here. We made her our heir, which is great, and we're using her high authority stat to help boost our faction-wide satisfaction, and because of that, we should switch her weapon. Her Jian is providing her 9 expertise. If we switch this to a ceremonial sword, she can get +6 authority instead, and that can make this a little higher. Now, it's not high enough to change the amount of satisfaction gain, but it's still a step in the right direction. She is never really going to enter the battlefield for us, so we don't really need to give her a more offensive weapon. A ceremonial sword is just fine. And for certain items like Representationist that can boost faction wide, she is an heir, so this would apply. We could let her equip this, or we can give this to Cao Cao instead. It does provide 15 points of cunning, which is actually quite a bit of stat. So I think Cao Cao will get it for now. In the future, if we get a better follower item, we'll switch it off and give that to Cao Cao and put this on Lady Bian. And we have no more items and everyone's ready. So all we need to do to fight is select your army and right click on the enemy army. In this case, we're already kind of locked into each other's zone of influence. You can see by the circle on the ground. That is the amount of zone our army can control. And once you clash into an enemy zone, you're kind of locked in terms of movement. Once we beat them, we can move a lot more, but right now we can only fight them because we're locked into each other's zone. Since this is the first tutorial battle, this army is set to get destroyed after one fight, but typically you have to either kill everyone on the army, because sometimes they will just rout due to morale, but if you don't kill everyone, they will just retreat back a little and they'll still be on the map. That's something else you should notice. And because it's preset so this army get destroyed, we have one shot to capture Yuan, because you can see he doesn't actually have resiliency down here like we do. So it's basically our one shot to capture him. So let's jump into this fight. And this is the pre-battle load screen. We can see how many men we have, how many reinforcements we have if we have another army nearby, and what our predicted casualties are if we delegate the fight or let the AI take over. On the other hand, we can see how many men he has and so forth. And this is the balance of power bar. This shows that we are heavily favored. And this night battle, if we have a skill that unlocks night battle, will allow us to check this box here and enable a night battle. A night battle will remove all reinforcements. It will become a one-on-one fight, and the enemy will lose some spotting abilities and also minus 15 points of morale, which is huge. Morale is very, very important, as we already talked about looking at unit cards. So if we have night battles available, it's a very powerful skill to pick up and very powerful tool to use in your fights. Aside from that, notice the symbol here. This white flag means this army will get destroyed if it loses in battle, which is something we already mentioned. Usually armies don't have this. If you fight the same army twice in the same turn, then the second battle will always be a destroyed battle. They will always have this flag after they lose their first battle. And we can check what the map looks like over here. This will show the terrain of the battle before we jump in. And we can deploy anywhere within this green zone. They can deploy anywhere within this red zone. The little circles are trees, and these outlying contours are terrain, so basically little hills or cliffs. Doesn't look too steep here, so probably just little hills. And we can pop back in. We have the option of letting the computer take care of this according to the power bar here, or fighting this ourselves. Since we are trying to capture him, as you can see here, there is a capture percentage here. This is not the definitive percentage. This is everything before all the bonuses from items and stats are applied. But because we have the shaman item, we have an extra 10% chance. If not, 61% chance is what we have. And there's other factors depending on how well you fight this battle. So if we do get a decisive victory, which is a battle rating, there's various different ratings for battles. You can have close victory, you can have pyrrhic victory, you can have decisive victory or heroic victory. There are 4 types of victories. And then for defeats, there are close defeats, valiant defeat. I think there's only 2 types. And in this case, we want a very highly rated victory. Decisive victory being the 3rd tier. I think the tier goes from a pyrrhic victory, which means you pretty much barely won, a close victory, which is also barely won, but you maybe didn't take as much loss, and then you have decisive victory, and then heroic victory. Heroic victory are really hard to get in the game, because usually you have to be down in terms of your balance of power. The game must think you will lose the fight for it to give you a heroic victory after you win. So often people complain about the weird victory grading, and that really has to do with your initial power rating. So in this case, we are favored, so a win is expected. If we get a win, then perhaps it might just be a costly victory or a decisive victory if we fight it really cleanly, but it will never be a heroic victory. If we lose maybe just 100 men, then maybe the game will think we did poorly compared to what they think the AI can do. Therefore, we'll get a worse victory rating. And as you can see, the capture chance will depend on how well we fight this, so we really want a decisive victory. And with that said, let's just jump in here, fingers crossed. Hopefully we can capture him, even though I think it's rather hard.
今国乱岁凶，人心思乱，当趁此良机整顿乱民，强梁和灭，小小当诛，肃清天下，再孤一人。
Alrighty, we are loaded into the battle. I included the pre-battle speech. Now the first time you use a legendary character in battle, they will have their own speech. In this case, we heard Cao Cao's speech right there, and that's something unique. They will only say it once, so only the first time you do battle with them. After that, they won't give that speech ever again. So as we jump into this fight here, we're in the deployment phase. We can move our army anywhere we want within this zone. Now if we have a skill called guerrilla deployment, then we can move our army anywhere outside of their red circle. It means we can put it behind them, we can put it to the side, hide them in a forest, but we don't have that. Nor do we really care about that. Matter of fact, for this battle, I intend to showcase the power of the generals. So all the units can back off, and we're going to win this with 2 units right here. Now, many people have complained about how powerful generals are on romance mode, and in my opinion, that's what romance mode is for. Your generals are heroes. They can do a lot of things. I hotkey them into a group, control 1 or control number, whichever number you want to use, and then you can just select the number to select them. Just easier for me to grab them. There's a few things I need to talk about before we fight. Typically, if you're not trying to capture a general, what you want to do in the first battle is duel them. The reason why you want to duel them is because if you win a duel, you get a large amount of experience boost. And that amount will vary depending on if you ask them to duel or if they ask you to duel. There's actually a difference. So I'm going to showcase both as we fight and talk about why we might want to do certain things. And in this case, we don't want to duel, because dueling is a lock combat to the death, and that means if we kill him on this map, as in we take away all his health, he is officially dead. He has no resiliency, remember? He doesn't become wounded, he just becomes dead. We want to capture him, so we want him to rout. We want his morale to drop below 0 so that he will run away from the battle. That way we have a shot at capturing him. Let's go. So we're gonna ride off. There's a few effects you can see popping on here. We are friends with each other, therefore we get that bonus. We talked about this when we looked at unit cards. And the reason why we can use generals to destroy them is because they don't have any spear units. They have saber militias and some archers. You see, this is a dueling screen. He is challenging us. Always decline these unless you have one good reason to. I'll explain the good reason. So the reason why I had to decline that is if I let the number tick down from 15 seconds to 0, then it will be auto accept, and we will start the fight, and he will die because Xiahou is much stronger because we have a silver weapon. He doesn't have any weapons. The only time where you might want to accept the enemy challenging us to a duel is if we want to position the duel in a certain area of the map. Let's say right now, we're currently out of range. You can see the range. If we're in range, right? If we're in range and we can challenge him, we click this here, we ask him to duel us, and we will run at each other right away. So the duel will happen somewhere in the middle here. Sometime that might be a terrible spot. Let's say it's in front of the enemy castle or the enemy city with lots of towers. That means after we win the duel, let's say we win the duel, we will be standing in the middle of enemy fire. That's terrible. So we want to maybe have the duel happen over here. How can we do that? We have to make that location the midpoint of your general and the enemy general. Now you're saying, well, we talked about range. He's currently out of range. How can we make this the midpoint if we have to basically stand over here when we challenge him? Well, in that situation, you let him challenge you. Once he has the 15-second timer on the map, click your character who's getting challenged and have them run to the spot where the midpoint is somewhere you will like. That timer will continue to tick. Once it ticks to 0, even if you're right here, you will finish the run and then they will start charging at each other. Then you can create the midpoint that you want. So that's a neat way of setting up the duel somewhere more favorable to you. Perhaps the enemy general is insanely strong and you know you will lose the duel. But because he's so strong, you don't want him to fight your army, So you sent one of your weaker generals to draw him away from the fight, or maybe draw him into a trap where your units are waiting, so that after he wins his duel, he will be dismounted because you're dueling on foot. You will dismount and fight the duel. Then your units come out and jump him after the duel. That's a viable strategy. So that's the only time I recommend you to let him initiate the duel, because you'll get less experience that way. Otherwise, if he's willing to challenge you, because sometimes the AI will refuse to duel you if he deems you too strong. Usually the first battle AI is set to be a bit dumb and challenge you anyways, but in this case, he will always accept. Sometimes he will say does not want to duel, then you're out of luck. But in our case, we don't want to duel, and the easiest way to prevent dueling is just click this button on your generals. They will automatically refuse any duels and the AI will stop asking. Alright, now we can go on to winning this battle. And the only thing we really need to do here to win the battle is charge at their units. Cavalries are really strong in the game, and our generals are on horseback. They're on foot. So the more crowded they are, the more damage we'll deal. Look at it. Now, not all those guys are dead, but we just run out. We took no damage, and then we reset for another charge. And we charge right through again. You see they're already wavering. Reset, charge back. Now they're routing. Now this is stage 4, their general's coming at us. We don't want him to really fight us at this point. This is stage 1 of routing. It's a white flag with a red background. They can bounce back from this. If the background turns clear, then they're shattered. They will never come back. In our case, we want experience on our troops, so they're shattered now. So we're going to let our generals kill them. So you see how powerful generals are. Against infantry, they're powerless against your generals. If he had cavalry, cavalries are very good at chasing down generals and outlasting them in a fight, because your cavalry unit, single unit, can't really charge at a group of cavalry, which we do have. So imagine this is charging our general. We can't really charge in and use our horse to kill any of them. Against infantry, we can. Or if the enemy have spear units. The spear units have something called braced and charge reflect. They will reflect the damage of the charge back onto the guy charging them, and they can also knock you off your horse if you charge directly into a braced spear unit. In this case, the enemy has no spear. They have sword and archer, and the archer is not shooting at me right now. If you're playing on difficulties that's hard, easy, and normal, the archers will fire at your generals. But because firing at generals is deemed a waste of ammo, and it really is, you can't actually charge through. Don't stand there and fight. That's how you get damage. Archers will not fire at you on very hard and legendary difficulty. The rationale is generals tend to have pretty high range block chance, and generals are single entities. They're trying to charge us. We charge through right back at them. Therefore, a bunch of arrows flying in the air, it's going to be really hard to find the target. So the AI's approach is just don't fire on the generals in case where we send a general up, absorb a bunch of ammo, they run out of ammo, then we send our unit up, and then they can't really hit us. Oh, we don't want to waste experience, want to go harvest those experience. So here's an example. They will likely bounce back if we don't chase them. So let's go kill this group, and we can observe over here. It's basically their morale. If their morale can recover back past 0, which is possible, so see it bounce back, he can rally. And he can return to the fight. He needs to go above 0. I think it's possible. We can also rest, because there's a thing called fatigue. You can see the little leg symbol once we hit spacebar to pull up this menu. We can see they're tired. By standing still, they can recover. I feel like they might not actually recover. I don't want to waste that experience. Oh, they recovered. See, positive 4. But it's very low. It's very easy to route a recovered unit again. The only time recovered units are super annoying is when you used an effect to reduce their morale. So sometimes generals have abilities that can reduce morale. Speaking of abilities, we haven't used any because it's not relevant for this fight. We're just charging. Just using General as a charger can kill all the troops. I don't know why they're fighting back. They're routed. They're breaking the rules. We just run out. We don't want to take this much damage. And once we run away, they will shatter. Chase them. And he's alone. And when you're alone, you're going to start feeling alone very soon. It will be a stat called outnumbered, and that's going to bring your morale down. And then we just whack him a few times so that he's injured, and then he will decide to rout as well. Just don't kill him. And this way we maximize the number of experience we gain on our generals as well. There's many elements of the battle we haven't talked about. How to fight siege battles, how to set up your army, how to, there's so many things about battles. We'll talk about them whenever we do a battle. We'll cover maybe one topic at a time. And this topic is really about dueling and not killing the general so that we can capture him. That's the main theme here. And most likely we won't capture him. Just a heads up. It's not likely to happen. Now we charge him. We just want to get a couple hits, watch his morale. If it starts dropping, we can just back off. We don't want to kill him. And we're covered in blood. Too much killing. Alright, pull away. Faster and stronger enemy nearby. Damage sustained. Alright, let's get some more damage. Can we hit him? There we go. I don't like how he's hitting back, but I think he's almost done. Okay, back off. Think about your life, my friend. Think about life. 20. Okay, he's wavering. Stop. He's done. You see army loss? That's the why we killed everyone first. Then negative 90. It bounced back, but that's because we won, so it reset. He's going to run off the map, which is totally fine. We can just watch him run off the map. That's what we want. That's the only way we can capture him. If we kill him, it's over. There's no capture chance. And I would say this is a decisive victory. None of our men died. We just used our general. There we go. We got the decisive victory. Fingers crossed. Alrighty, so we get a cool little animation out here first. And this is when we find out. If we capture him, it'll be a pop-up window. We got it. Okay, so worked out perfectly here. This isn't going to happen every time. We definitely got lucky, and we also got the option to employ, which doesn't always happen. So here we can finally see him, and we finally know him because we fought him. And this is the reason why we worked so hard to capture him. Agricultural Reformer gives him 30 points of stat. That means this is not a generic trait or generic background. Generic backgrounds only provide 15 points of stat. Unique backgrounds like this provides 30 points of stat or higher. And it gives him agricultural development assignment unlock. That's not why I want him. I want the 2 administered commandery bonus here. So he gives 30% construction cost discount to all agricultural buildings if he is the administrator. And he gives -1 construction time to all agricultural buildings if he is the administrator. He is so great at helping you build out your agricultural commanderies that he is definitely worth trying really hard to recruit, even if you have to restart your game. Because this is a turn 1 battle, I actually have an early game starter guide for Cao Cao that pretty much encourage you to restart to try to get him. He also has fabulous traits. He has the humble trait, which makes him have no desire for higher office. It means no matter what his rank is, he will never desire higher office, and he also gives you plus 10 points of satisfaction. He has Scholarly trait, which helps him rank up faster. He gains 25% extra character experience. And then Fraternal trait also reduces penalty from desire for higher office, which is kind of redundant because Humble already got rid of all of it. And on top of that, Humble also decreases ambition to try to gain independence as administrator, thus making him a wonderful administrator. So all these things are wonderful on him, and we're going to employ him. Now, there's going to be a lot of time you're going to capture generals, and this is going to be grayed out, as in they're not willing to work for you, but you capture them. So your option becomes release them and get paid for the ransom amount, or execute them and take maybe 1 or 2 items from their inventory. In this case, he has no items. These items are all default items, so they're not technically items. You have infinite copies of these, therefore you can't execute him to get anything. But if he had another item equipped, executing him will give you that item, releasing him will not, and employing him will give you everything he has. So you can take everything by employing. So if employ is available, I highly recommend to employ first. You can always fire him afterward if you don't like him. Executing is really bad in my opinion, unless you can't employ. If both these options are available, always employ, because executing also hurts feelings. If he has any friends, rivals, faction members, faction leaders, they will remember that you executed one of their generals and they will hate you for it. It will hurt in diplomacy. So in that situation, it might be better to release or employ. Both of these will not have negative consequences. And matter of fact, if you release, they will have positive consequences. The enemy will think you're treating their generals with honor and nicely, and they'll give you positive diplomatic values. But in this case, we're definitely employing. And then this is the usual choice. We don't always get to capture generals. Usually you just have this screen where you can ransom the troops you have captured for some extra income, seize their supplies for some military supplies. You can check your current supply here. You don't want to be at 0 supply. If you don't have supply, you will suffer from attrition. In our case, we have plenty of supplies. We have 60 right now. It's between 0 and 100, and the change between this turn and next turn is 47, which means we'll max out next turn. There's no way we need more supplies, and oftentimes supply is really never an issue, so you almost never take this option. The most common option is ransom for money, which gives a favorable diplomatic rating, or recruit for replenishment. This is basically forcing their troop to join your troop to help heal your troops. In our case, our troops are not injured, therefore there is no benefit here. So for us, it's pretty straightforward. We take the ransom here. We also finish our first mission, which gives us Taste of Victory, 3-turn bonus of more military supplies, 30 per turn for 3 turns, and plus 5 morale to all our units faction-wide. And with that, we get a new mission because we finished one, and it's asking us to capture the following settlement. In case you don't know where this is, click on the magnifying glass, brings us right to the livestock farm right in front of our army. And should we capture this, we get a different bonus called Support from the People, 3 turns of plus 5 public order, and plus 25 faction support. And this is a battle that we're going to do in our next episode, as we pretty much wrapped up here. We also got ourselves a nice event. These are given to your faction leader on their first experiences. First time winning a battle, first time losing a battle, first time capturing a settlement, first time losing a settlement, first time using spies, and so forth. So basically every time your faction leader does something for the first time, they will gain a bonus experience to help you level them up. In this case, we had our first win, therefore Cao Cao gets an extra 1,250 experience. So this is always going to happen, even on your first defeat. So don't feel so bad when you lose that first battle. And that's pretty much it. If we got any items from that battle, it will be displayed here. And notifications are always on the left. They will keep popping up as things go on. If they're grayed out, it means you've seen them already. Just right click to get rid of them if they bother you, but they're going to pop up every turn, so just get used to them. And before we end, we can see the new character that joined us. He's replacing our father, who has now finally left, and he is on 1 turn cooldown. All recruited characters needs 1 turn cooldown before they join your court, similar to how our father took a turn to leave. Same idea here. And he's very happy with us right now because he's recently hired. That will decrease as he's no longer recently hired. It will drop per turn. But he has fondness towards us, which we talked about, because we spare them. We are their captor turned masters. Therefore, he will always have high satisfaction with us. As you can see, plus 15 points from spared and employed, and then a separate 15 point from faction fondness. So an inherent 30 point boost to him. So these are all great things for us. Very excited we got him. And that's going to wrap it up for us here as we did our first battle and talked about how to capture generals and the power of generals themselves. We will highlight that a bit more in the next fight as we can do similar things in different ways against larger enemy groups or different enemy type, because we did mention there's certain weakness against polearm units which we'll try to overcome in the next battle tutorial. So until then, bye!